A fierce showdown has erupted as India observed Partition Horrors Remembrance Day. Congress is up in arms after Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter to pay homage to all those who lost their lives during partition. The Prime Minister applauded the resilience and grit of all those who suffered during the tragic period. Countering Prime Minister Modi, Congress said that Prime Minister's intent is to use the traumatic events as fodder for his current political battles. Congress MP Jairam Ramesh slammed the BJP for misusing the tragedy of partition to fuel hate and prejudice. The BJP said that politics of selfishness and personal interests solely led to partition. Earlier in the day, the BJP took direct aim at Nehru. A 7-minute video tangentially blamed Jawaharlal Nehru for bowing to the demands of Muhammad Ali Jinnah-led Muslim League for the creation of Pakistan. To which the Congress party responded. Congress took the fight a step further by claiming that Savarkar proposed two-nation theory, which was approved by Jinnah. Listen in.
इसका बीज तो सावरकर ने 1925 में बोया था जब विश्व हिंदू परिषद के उन्होंने अध्यक्षता किया। उस समय उन्होंने कहा कि दो राष्ट्र का उन्होंने स्वीकार किया और वहीं मोहम्मद जिन्ना ने उसे 1937 में उसको स्वीकार किया।
And if this was not enough, an ad by the Karnataka government left Congress party fuming. Congress claims the advertisement left out India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru's photo but accommodated that of Savarkar. The BJP responded, hit out of the Congress party, pointing out that Nehru is pretty much in the advertisement. Let's open this up and go across to our guests. We're joined by Shehzad Poonawallaa, BJP spokesperson. We also have Dr. Ajay Alok, political analyst, Gokul Chandran, also a political analyst, and Lokesh Jindal, a political analyst as well. Now, we also have Chandra Kumar Bose, socio-political activist and a BJP leader. Good evening to all of you. I first want to come to you, Shehzad Poonawallaa, for a rebuttal, because Congress party has alleged that this is being done, the Remembrance Day, only to gain brownie points in the current political scenario. They've questioned the intent of the Prime Minister.
You know, for a very long period of time, the sins and the crimes that were committed in the name of partition, which took place basically because certain individuals had put their selfish interests, their family interests above national interests, those pains to 1.5 crore people who had to migrate, 10 lakh people who lost their lives, thousands and thousands of women who were raped, particularly in the states of Bengal, which is present-day West Bengal. Those pains and those sins need to be remembered so that we always are on a safeguard that the politics of political convenience and partisan selfish interest don't triumph over the larger national interest. And therefore, if today an attempt that was being made for the last 7 decades to bury this pain, to bury the sins and the crimes of those personalities who were involved at the time, who were in power, is being spoken of and is being remembered so that we don't repeat these mistakes, what, pray, could be the problem with that? But the reason why the Congress party is opposing is because today, I don't know, perhaps it is also a day of celebration for Pakistan, so perhaps Congress feels that why should anybody in India, or at least their section of people, be upset about it, we should also celebrate. But that's not the point. The point is that it's very clear that who are those personalities who were in power, who could have stopped the vivisection of India, who could have prevented this from happening, who could have put their own interests aside. They did not do it, and they want to bury this truth. They don't want it to be spilt out and spelled out. Bengali Hindus suffered a great tragedy. You know, the kind of killings and the kind of treatment they were then given when they came to India. They were not even given refugee status. They were declared as migrants. They were treated shabbily by the government that was in power, only to ensure that more migration does not happen, and these Bengali Hindus leaving for their lives from the hands of those who were killing them and marauding them in East Pakistan at that point of time should not even get refuge in their own land. These stories should not come out. It should be buried and hidden, and therefore some people are overactive today and saying that don't remember the past. They blame Savarkar ji for two-nation theory. Can you believe it? It was Sir Syed Ahmad who declared the two-nation theory way before Savarkar ji was even born. It was the Congress party at that point of time which basically genuflected in front of the Muslim League and wanted an entire united Bengal to go to Pakistan. that was prevented by Shama Prasad Mukherjee ji. And those who are the heroes and the champions of preventing this tragedy are now being hailed as the villains by the Congress party because only one parivar needs to be celebrated.
Okay, Lokesh Jindal, respond to that. The bone of contention is not the fact that the horror Remembrance Day is being observed. The bone of contention is the BJP blaming Nehru and Muhammad Ali Jinnah for partition.
My friend Shehzad, he spoke a lot as a rhetoric rather than any form of factual base. Now, when we are talking about formation of India and Pakistan, it involved application of principle of self-determination. Following World War II, or during the World War II itself, there were various instances, such as there was the Cripps Mission proposal, and following this, there were various attempts by the Lord Wavell also in the Shimla Agreement, so as to bring about some form of a rapprochement between the Congress as well as the Muslim League. But then in the elections of 1946, we saw that Congress, which won 57 seats out of 102, and the Muslim League, which won 30 seats out of 102, and moreover in two provinces, that is Bengal and Sindh, Muslim League was having majority. So it was very much clear that the two important regions that we have, that is Bengal and Sindh, they had been beyond the reach of the Congress and they would be voting in a different capacity altogether. Punjab, which was having the unionist government, was also having two sides, whether to have India or Pakistan. Cabinet mission plan, which gave a proposal, which ruled out complete separation of India and Pakistan, but which talked about some form of unions, was ruled out by both of them. So on 3rd of June 1947, when Mountbatten came up with the proposal of partition of India, the idea was that there has to be application of principle of self-determination, as well as both the groupings, they must be satisfied and the killings must be halted. The reason why the partition took place hurriedly was to stop the genocide which had already begun in 1946. So there was no role of Nehru. There was nothing like Nehru could have simply stopped the genocide from taking place, or some form of communalization that was occurring throughout the time period. It was from 1925 that the RSS, which had been pitching for the idea of Hindutva and Hindu Rashtra and majoritarianism, which it displayed in the form of rejection of the Nehru plan in 1929, and in 1930s when it rejected Muslim League altogether, which was responsible for 1940 Lahore Declaration as well as hardening of the stance of the Muslims. So communalism was a fire
communalism
fueled by
and
both
organizations like RSS.
One counter.
Yes,
go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Jindal, you've read out a set of facts that are, Mr. Jindal, if you read out a set of facts that are convenient for you, can you tell me then why did the CWC at that time in 1942 pass a resolution conceding the division of India?
1942 Congress Working Committee was not functioning because Quit India movement was taking place, first of all.
They passed a resolution, it was also subsequently passed.
Please,
you know, this is a selective reading of history. This is a selective, this is playing fast and loose with facts.
1940 के बाद में अगली जो कमेटी बैठी थी 1946 में बैठी, और तब तक जो है अबुल कलाम आजाद was the president of the Indian National
Let me bring in Dr. Ajay Alok. Dr. Ajay Alok, the BJP is alleging it was Nehru and Jinnah who were responsible for the two-nation theory for partition. Lokesh Jindal is presenting a different point of view. He said it was done to stop the genocide.
Well, it was definitely not done to stop the genocide. Here Mukul is right that the genocide already took place since 1946. See, the seeds of Hindu and Muslims were extremely inherent in this undivided country. There is no doubt about it. What Prime Minister did today, that is more important, that he paid his homage and he felt the pain that lakhs of the family felt during 1947, during the partition, when most of the people coming from Pakistan had to bear a lot of cruelty, what you say, the gruesome cruelty, and vice versa maybe. So he tried to pay homage. The biggest problem of the partition was right from the beginning, since Jinnah and Nehru came into the picture, that both had great ambitions to the extent of cruelty, and nobody was ready to listen. And Gandhiji was not able to satisfy either of them, and he wanted to keep both of them. This indecisiveness ultimately led to the division.
Let him speak.
Actually, let me complete. You can have your point of view. So the seeds of communalism were undivided India were always there. Now second mistake, once the division took place, it was held on religious line. Everybody agrees that for Muslims it will be Pakistan. Then why, on what ground? Like what you said, that Muslim League won the elections. Muslim League won the elections in UP, Muslim League won the elections in Bihar. But Muslims of UP and Bihar, in spite of voting to Muslim League, they never went back to Pakistan. Is that the reason that India will be a secular country, though it was not mentioned in the constitution then? The constitution was made such like that all religion will be accommodated when the division was on religious line. This was the second classical mistake till now which we are facing. And that's why this communalism facade and everything is being played every now and then. So, but we need to understand the pain our countrymen faced, the undivided India faced, whether it is from Pakistan or whether it is from India, and that's what Prime Minister did today. He never mentioned that only Indians coming from Pakistan side face the pain. He said that the partition led to failure of humanity and mankind.
Absolutely. Gokul Chandran, if it was done to stop genocide, why did it not happen peacefully? There was not just mass migration, mass killings took place. And if today those victims who had to go through those tragic moments, that suffering are being commemorated, why look for political gains? Why question the intention?
Yeah, good evening, Swati. See, the history data have been beautifully explained by Mr. Jindal. I don't want to get much into it because reading verses to Satan is not going to help. So BJP is not going to accept the facts and history. They want to rewrite the history and they want to give a new color for political mileage and political gains. The BJP and Mr. Modi always derive pleasure in opening the wounds which have been healed, and even today Mr. Narendra Modi wants to open the wound so that he can further divide the Indian society and further gain politically. The other thing is, who is BJP to ask all this? Did anyone from BJP contribute anything for the freedom of India? And they are talking about Veer Savarkar, who licked the boot of Britishers and who sided with Britishers and who wrote mercy petitions to the British. Shame, they are having a legacy of Savarkar. And what Mr. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee did, he wrote to Britishers to stop Congress party from fighting against them and for fighting for India's freedom. This traitors, the BJP legacy, the lineage of BJP are traitors to India and who sided with British, and they don't have any business to talk about freedom fighters or make any comment on India's freedom movement. The partition which happened was really, it is sadful. I don't know if it could be avoided.
Okay, Shehzad Poonawallaa.
First of all, Mr. Lokesh Jindal is absolutely factually wrong that there was no resolution and committee in 1942. Please Google that fact out, it will bear out itself. And secondly, let me tell you, in 1942, the Madras presidency even accepted a resolution for the partition of this country along religious lines, and it was called the Rajaji Pact with Jinnah, and it was accepted by the Congress party. And here is a news report to show it. Here, Rajaji's pact with Jinnah.
Agreement.
Yeah. Now that was in which year? It was before. It was in 1942. It was in 1942. It was accepted by the Congress party. In fact, it was in 1942.
They were in jail at that point of time. Gandhi authorized C. Rajagopalachari so as to have some form of an understanding.
So that's what I'm saying. You accepted the division of this country, but whom are you blaming? You were in the Mr. Jindal. We can speak one at a time. You have accepted and acknowledged that he was the Karta Dharta of the Congress and he accepted this. He accepted the proposal to partition India, and it was done because of the unbridled ambitions of certain personalities in Congress and certain personalities in Muslim League. You accepted a pact and a bid with Muslim League to divide this country along religious lines, and today you say there's nothing communal about it.
Which pushed upon that they shall not accept any form of reservation to the Muslims. In fact, at that point of time, Sarojini Naidu had hailed Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
You can keep spinning it all night long.
Due to the hard
so who came up with the two nations?
That you accepted this proposal, yes or no?
Broke down, which led to the
Mr. Mr. Jindal.
Muslims
Mr.
did
Jindal,
not
let's make it
stand.
simpler.
Even in the elections
Mr.
of
Jindal,
1937,
stop putting out jargon and trying to confuse the public.
The Congress was given complete
Mr. Jindal,
Okay, one second, Mr. Jindal. Mr. Jindal.
You don't need to
Mr.
speak
Jindal,
your exposed.
one second.
Can I just ask him a simple question?
Okay, quick counter.
Did Congress accept the division of this country in 1942 under Rajaji on
No,
communal lines?
absolutely not, sir. It's just a plan. It is just a plan.
That's what we are
Read
saying. This
everything
was your
over
plan.
there.
It was
This is not-
executed in
it's a dangerous
47.
thing.
Absolutely.
No,
Okay, I want to bring in Chandra Kumar Bose, grand nephew of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. You can maybe throw more light on the events that took place that led to the partition. Mr. Bose, also, do you think that this political fight or blame game or questioning of intention somewhere down the line is trivializing the trauma?
Good evening, everybody. Let me put the entire partition theory into the right perspective. You see, it was certainly a historic blunder that India got partitioned on religious grounds. You see, you have to go back to 1936, when under the Government of India Act, elections were held in the provinces. You see, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and my grandfather, Sarat Chandra Bose, had proposed that you should jointly fight the elections along with the Krishak Praja Party. But somehow the Congress Working Committee, this proposal was placed at the Congress Working Committee, but it was rejected by both Mr. Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi. I don't know the reasons why it was rejected. So, from 1937 onwards, if you see, the theory of partition entered the political fray. See, till 1940, I would also like to tell you that Mr. Jinnah did not want partition till 1940. Only at the Lahore conference, he raised the Pakistan issue. See, today, the problems that we face in Kashmir, Bangladesh, cross-border terrorism have all arisen from this political and historic blunder, partition of India. Certainly the entire Congress leadership is to be blamed. We cannot single out Mr. Nehru.
No.
All leaders during that era, Mr. Nehru, Sarojini Naidu, Sardar Patel, and even Mahatma Gandhi, who initially had opposed the partition of India, had finally accepted partition. And coming to today's political scenario, it is pointless to do a political slugfest on the partition of India. It is a disaster, let's face it. You see, there was one undivided United India's government. That was the Azad Hind government. On the 21st of October 1943, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the first Prime Minister of undivided, declared freedom and declared war against the British Empire and the Allied powers. He could practice what he actually preached.
So you're saying
formed
the
this
politics which is underway is
India's
not
government.
healing, but rather
Let me
opening,
finish.
rather
Let me
opening
finish.
those wounds.
Please let me finish. Tomorrow is a black day in
Okay.
India's history. It is not freedom. Tomorrow we were
No,
given
I
dominion
would
status
not.
under the British Empire.
Okay,
It
Lokesh
was
Jindal and Gokul
partition of
Chandran and
India
Dr.
Day.
Ajay Alok
The
all want
real
to
freedom
all
of
want to
India
come in.
is
Lokesh Jindal, quickly go ahead.
When undivided India's
Tomorrow is
freedom
the date of
was
glory. It's the date that is sacred to every Indian. You cannot call this date a dark date. We condemn this
It is
comment
a
of
black
yours.
day.
And let me tell you one more thing. Let me tell you one more thing.
Dominion
Let me
status
get
is
your
not
facts
what we
correct,
fought
sir.
for. We fought
Fifth
for
nation came to
Purna
India because of the
Swaraj.
Atlantic
Mahatma
Charter.
Gandhi
The Atlantic
fought for
Charter
Purna
had
Swaraj.
mentioned explicitly
We were given
application of
dominion
principle of
status. We are not
self-determination
beggars.
in order to give
We were not
independence
beggars.
to
We
all the
fought for
colonies
India's
which are under
freedom.
the British.
Let's be very
So
clear.
over here,
Till
whenever there was
1950,
any form of a commission
what
that was
the
coming to
status
India,
of
whether it was
India?
SIPS mission,
Only
whether
on
it
the
was cabinet
26th
mission,
of January
they had to apply the
1950,
principle of self-determination in order
declared
to
a
have
republic.
Absolutely, Dr. Chandra Kumar Bose, but we fought long and hard. We fought long and hard, and those sacrifices, those contributions of the freedom fighters cannot be ignored. We fought long and hard, and we earned the freedom that we got. Dr. Ajay Alok.
For the statement that you made. Tomorrow, the 15th of August is sacred to all.
Well,
Indians.
I just want to ask my friend who just said that BJP and Savarkar, they never had any contribution in the freedom fight. Well, I guess they are contradicting the Congress party, because today Mr. Baghel, Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, and other Congress party said that it was Mr. Savarkar who went to Jinnah and proposed a two-nation theory. If Savarkar had no rights or no interest in the freedom struggle of India, how could he have suggested this to Mr. Jinnah?
Gokul Chandran, I believe the question is for you.
Mr. Savarkar,
I will
you
respond.
cannot ignore the fact that they were equally responsible and they were equally interested in getting the freedom. And that's why we honor him. That's why we honor him in the central hall of the parliament, which you couldn't afford to dislodge him in 10 years of tenure.
Okay, Gokul Chandran, the question is for you.
To get into dig into the past, everybody had their own.
Let's
not forget it.
Already, now I have to wrap up so quickly, Gokul Chandran.
See, if Mr. Savarkar, if you accept that Savarkar has advocated for partition, that is not for India's freedom, then how does he has contributed for India's freedom? He has contributed to India's partition. You yourself are admitting it. And a reply to Mr. Bose. See, the partition had happened and maybe it was for good. You can never deny that.
That's what I'm saying.
The whole of Pakistan and India together, I don't know how the whole nation would have survived with such BJP government in power, how such a huge nation with large number of minorities would have even survived. We can't even imagine. So the people who have fought for the freedom, it was not only Mr. Nehru, it was a collective decision by all the leaders.
Collective decision, Shehzad Poonawallaa, cannot single out Jawaharlal Nehru.
Today, you know what they have done? Today, Jairam Ramesh has even thrown the one leader that they had, Indira Gandhiji's legacy, into the dustbin. Because I want to quote what Indira Gandhiji said about Savarkarji. I have received your letter, she is writing to Pandit Bakle. I have received your letter of 8th May. Veer Savarkar's daring defiance of the British government has its own importance in the annals of our freedom movement. I wish success to the plans to celebrate the birth centenary of a remarkable son of India, Indira Gandhi. And then she gave 11,000 rupees from her own personal account for the celebration of Savarkarji and for his legacy.
Sir, that's called tolerance.
So today, no, it's not called tolerance, it's called Jairam Ramesh's ignorance. That he has thrown Indira Gandhiji, he has thrown Indira Gandhiji's views into the dustbin. You have thrown Rahul Sahi or Indira Sahi, batao.
Savarkar is a traitor.
While this political debate goes on, the blame game goes on the eve of independence, the question still remains, is the political tussle traumatizing the trauma? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Shehzad Poonawallaa will continue to be with us. I'm thanking all the other guests for joining us on the broadcast with their views. Thank you very much.